Hello, and welcome to The Connection. This podcast is about understanding and building the connection we have with others and with ourselves. It is my hope that through this podcast, you'll be able to have more joy and fulfillment in your life. I'm your host, Jared Hurst. So, this week, I wanted to talk with you about something new. I know that over the last 3 weeks, there's been some common themes, and on some level, I actually feel that I've repeated a few things, but a lot of the times when I'm talking with you, it's because there are things that I'm going through in my own life that I feel are important, they're on my mind, and so a lot of the times my podcast is actually a journey of myself, the things that I am learning and developing. So that happens from time to time. I'm all right with it. The main thing for me is that I continue to look at stuff, to evaluate things, and see where I can improve and better myself. One of the things that I've noticed, for some reason, I've had a dry mouth over the last 3 weeks. So I've had a number of times where I am kind of clearing my throat or trying to make it to where I can talk again. So I look at those things and I say to myself, how can I fix these things? How can I make them better? How can I make it to where I'm not distracting from my audience so that they can focus on the message? Or how can I deliver my message in a clearer way? And one of the reasons that I'm talking about that today is because of this week's podcast episode topic. This week's episode, the topic which I want to talk with you about is staying on the path, tools for keeping ourselves on track. So it's about, in our life, we have things that we want to accomplish. What tools can I use in order to help keep myself on the path that I want to go down? I've been thinking about that a lot lately because I have goals of who I want to be. I have goals of what I want to accomplish, and I've realized that I need to have more checks in place in order to make sure that I don't lose sight of the things that are really important to me. And I want to be able to share with you some of the things that I've been doing that have helped me in that goal of staying on my path, and to show you where you might be able to use some of these in your own life and to help yourself out. There is this concept that came to me very recently, and it fits so well with what I want to talk with you about today. It's funny. Normally, I don't talk with you about something that I've learned really, really recently. I usually try and sit with it for a little bit. And so all week, I was planning what I wanted to talk with you about, and I had all these ideas and all these things that I've been implementing and using over the last couple of weeks, and then this thing fell in my lap. And it's crazy how the universe brings the things that we need into our lives at the right moments at times. There's times where exactly what we need shows up. And this is one of those things where even though I just learned it, I felt like it needed to go at the top of everything I wanted to talk with you about today. So there's this man, his name is Matthew Hussey. I am becoming a bigger and bigger fan of his the more I listen to what he has to say. A lot of what he talks about is very much relationship based, but he also has some very helpful comments and philosophies around life in general. And there's a lot of the stuff that he talks about when it comes to relationships that I feel apply to everyday life. So I really enjoy him. And so he was recently on the Drew Barrymore show. And on this show, he had this concept. I'm going to paraphrase it and kind of summarize it the best I can. Also put my own little spin on it, which is what I like to do. But he talked about this idea that imagine that you were given a human. And this human that you were given, it was your responsibility to take care of this human in the best way you possibly could, to care for them, to encourage them, to be compassionate for them, all these different things. You're just doing everything you could to give the best life you could to this human. And if you're a parent, you can totally relate to this, right? As a parent, or if you're not a parent, maybe a dog owner or a cat owner or whatever, you do everything you can for this other entity to give them the best things that you can, the best food, the best exercise, the best mindset, the whatever it is that this entity needs, you care for it. And at any given moment, you know what would be the best thing you could do for them. And the idea is that you are that human, that you have been given a human to take care of, and it's you. And I really love this. One of the things that I have noticed, and maybe this is true for you, maybe it's not, but I've found that more often than not, I treat other people way better than I treat myself. So I've known for a while that when I look at how I'm treating myself, if I look at myself from a third person perspective, and I look at myself as though I were a separate person, I know what I should be doing for myself. And so I've had this question going around since I heard this, is what can I do for my human? What is the best thing I can be doing for my human right now? And I love it because it's constantly putting me in this third person perspective where I'm looking at myself as though I were a separate entity. And by constantly putting myself in this third person perspective, it's so easy for me to know what to do. I look at it and I say, what is the best thing I can do for this human right now? And at times, it's the best thing I can do for me is to be compassionate and understanding and patient. And times, the best thing I could do is to challenge myself and push myself to do something difficult. Sometimes it's getting myself to take action. Sometimes it's non-action. And so what I've done is I've started doing this throughout my day, whenever I feel a really strong emotion, when I'm about to take action, when I'm not taking any action. Just at any moment, look at my life and say, what is the best thing I could be doing for this human right now? And it's making my life so much easier. I had these really strong emotions, and I asked myself, what is the best thing I could be doing for this human right now? And I looked at myself as though I were a parent taking care of a child in that moment. And I knew exactly what to tell myself. I knew exactly how to be compassionate and loving towards myself. Like, I just knew how to care for myself in that moment. I started looking at things in new ways and in different perspectives, and it was so powerful and so incredible as I've started to really implement this in my life and just always look at myself and how can I help this human? I think it's a beautiful way to keep myself in a state of self-love. So hopefully you can use that to help yourself. And this concept feeds into these other things that I want to talk with you about. But I think that's the basis of everything. The core foundation is, what can I do for this human in this moment? And I love it. One of the things that I started doing, and I've really loved how this has helped me see my world differently, is I started doing what I call an embodiment journal. So at the end of every day, I don't record it, I don't write it down, though you could if you wanted to, is I basically do a verbal journal to myself. I'll be driving home from work, or maybe I'll be in my bedroom, or whatever it might be. And I go through my day as though I'm journaling. So I journal outside. Today I did this. and then I did this, and then I did this. And I go through and journal my day. But here's the caveat, the way I'm changing it, is as I'm doing it, and I'm talking about my real day, exactly what happened and whatnot, but while I'm doing it, I'm changing it. I'm modifying what actually happened during my day to how it would be if I was living my life the way that I want to live it. So let's say I'm talking about, I'm just going to make up a hypothetical day. So yesterday, we'll say that it was yesterday. I start being, hey Jared, today was an incredible day. I woke up and I went to the gym and I worked out really hard, and then I came home to get ready. But yesterday, I didn't wake up early and go to the gym super early before I got ready. So I've already looked at that, and as soon as I'm talking about my day as though I'd lived it the way that I really wanted to live it, I'm like, oh, I need to get to the gym earlier. I get to the gym, but I don't always do it when I should. Sometimes I procrastinate and get it done in the middle of the day or after I've shown some homes or whatever it might be. So I see that, and so I came home and I got ready, and then I did this, and then I did that, and then I went to that. And so as I'm going through and I'm outlining my entire day, I see all the things that I did that I'm really proud of. I'm so glad that I did this, and I'm so glad that I did this, and I am encouraging myself, and I'm getting excited about the things that I did. And at the same time, because I'm looking at it from the perspective of how would I have written this journal if I had lived this day the way that I wanted to live it, I'm also recognizing where I want to make changes in my life. Does that make sense? I really love it because I feel like it's a combination of celebrating my successes as well as helping me see where I want to make changes in my life. So that's my embodiment journal. I've been doing it at the end of each day. I just do it out loud verbally, and it's been great. You could probably do it in writing. I think that would be fascinating. I think the main thing that I love is that it's a flow of thought. I don't sit there and put tons of thought into what my perfect day would look like or would have looked like. It's just comes out of me naturally. And so I've had some really interesting realizations where all of a sudden something comes out and I'm like, oh, I guess that's something that I really want. It's almost helped me gain a closer connection with myself and my wants and my desires that maybe I'm not always consciously aware of. So that's my embodiment journal. Another thing that I've been doing, I do this a couple times a week, is a self-approval evaluation. One of the things that I've been trying to work on is putting my connection with myself and my approval of myself as a priority. I think it's important to have connection with other people. I think it's important that we look at how other people approve or disapprove of our actions and evaluate ourselves to determine if there is changes that need to be made in our life. But I think too often we put the approval of other people and other people loving us and valuing us and connecting with us as our number one priority, when our first priority should be, do I approve of me? Do I approve of the way that I am living my life? Am I connecting with myself, with my higher purpose, with the things that I desire, am I chasing after connection, or am I allowing connection to come to me? And so as I've looked at that, I've started doing this self-approval evaluation where I just sometime throughout the week, I'll look at my life and say on a general level, do I approve of what I'm doing? And I'll go through, and it's kind of like the embodiment journal, But it's different because I'm looking at it on more of an overall standpoint of, am I happy with the actions am I taking? Do I approve of my efforts? Do I approve of where my heart is when I go into certain experiences and events? Do I approve of the way that I'm thinking about myself? Do I approve of the way that I'm treating myself? And it's just this general overall look of my life and saying, am I happy with the way I'm living my life? And it's been great because I've realized where I'm living my life at the level that I want to, and I also recognize where I'm falling short, where I need to put more effort into this area. I've been great at this area, but I've allowed my effort into this area over here. I've allowed that to cause my efforts in this area to drop. So it's been really good. I know those are kind of similar, but I've found that just doing that once or twice a week and just kind of saying, how do I approve of the way I'm living my life right now? It helps me see things in a different way. I got a frog in my throat. There we go. Thank you. So it's just allowed me to look at things in a different way than the way the embodiment journal does. And I've had some realizations that I don't think I would have had otherwise. The last thing I want to talk about is flipping my perspective. So remember how I said that I've found times that if I look at myself from a third person perspective, it helps me? So normally we look at ourselves from a first person perspective, right? By looking at ourselves from a third person perspective, we gain outside just a different viewpoint of our actions, our thoughts, the way we treat ourselves, etc. So, I mean, if you think about it, literally that's what a first person point of view versus a third person point of view is. It's a different way of looking at the same thing, if you've ever read fiction books and whatnot. So when I take the way that I look at myself, the way that I act, the way I treat myself, and I look at it from somebody else's perspective, it gives me some really fascinating insights. And the same thing is true when I start looking at other people's actions and other people's perspectives and the way that they handle situations. And then I look at it from my perspective. If I were that person, how would I have handled it? If I were that person, how would I be feeling? And so I've been going through this process whenever I have interactions with people and they don't necessarily go the way that I want. For one, I'm asking myself, do I approve of what I've done? But I kind of go through this, I do look at myself and I say, do I approve of my actions and whatnot? But I do two specific things when I'm evaluating something that's happened between me and somebody else, or just some overall situation that involves another person. So the first thing I do is I look at it from understanding and empathy. I want to look at myself first and see where I can grow as a person and see where I need to be aware of things. So if I come from a place of empathy and I say, okay, what is their reality like? What are they experiencing? How would I feel if I were in their situation and if the roles were reversed? And it's been really enlightening. I know that I've had things that I did, and when I was doing them, I felt really good about what I was doing. From my perspective and from my mindset and the way that I would feel in that situation, I felt good about it. And then later I found that I had hurt people without meaning to. And so then when I started looking at it from their perspective, I realized where I could have done things better, where I could have handled the situation in a better way, where I should have asked permission for things or talked with people about things or maybe changed the way that I approached a situation. So I think that's really important. I think it's important that we self-evaluate and that we don't just look at it from how would I feel if this happened to me? Also look at it from based on the way they're looking at things, how would I feel? If I looked at things the same way they look at things, how would I feel? I think that's really important to understand other people's perspectives and other people's realities. But then the thing that I've added that's been really helpful for me is ideally, we don't always act in the best way, right? We have wounds, we have negative beliefs, we have negative coping strategies and things that we use in our life that aren't great. But ideally, if we weren't acting from a wounded place and we were handling things the way that we would want to handle things, if the situation were reversed, how would I handle it? And that has been really fascinating to look at them and their actions from how my actions would be in that same situation based on my value system. Because there are things where I've realized that I take somebody's actions personally. The way that they handle something is not the way that I would handle it, and so I look at it as an issue with me. I'll give you an example. So, wow, that hit me. So in real estate, I'll go out and I'll show people a home. And it takes a lot of time and effort on my part, and it takes a lot of money. Gas is not cheap. My time is not free. And so I'll have times where somebody wants to go look at a home. And I'll go and I'll show them that home. And I've had times where I can't believe people do this, but they will have me go show them multiple properties over multiple days. And then I find out that they have a relative who's a real estate agent, and then they have their relative write up the offer. So they take 8 hours of my time over 2 days, and then I don't get paid anything. I make zero money. So they've taken 8 hours of my time, all of the gas that I've spent on it, and then they go and use a different agent. If you can imagine, it's frustrating. And so when I look at those kind of situations, it doesn't happen too often, but when I've looked at those situations and I do this reversal and I say, well, their value system is different from my value system. My value system, I value loyalty and the way that I treat other people more than I do money. And in that person's value system, I look at it and I say, okay, they value the money or the loyalty to this other person. So there's two different situations there. If they use another agent that's like a family member, they value their connection with that person more than they value how it affects somebody that they don't know, like myself. And to them, that's the order of their value. Sometimes maybe they go and they don't use an agent at all. They have me do all this work and then they go and then they buy the house without an agent, which I don't understand. But anyway, let's say they go do that. Well, they think in that scenario that they're saving money. And so they value money more than they value loyalty. And I'm the flip side. I value loyalty more than I value money. And so I look at it and I say, even though I don't agree with their action, I recognize that it is simply a difference in value. It doesn't mean that they don't value what I did. They may completely value what I did, and it doesn't change the value of what I did to help them. It just means their order of values is different than mine. So that's helped me in situations like that where I don't feel as insulted. I guess insulted is not the word I want, but as hurt. I don't feel as hurt by the fact that they didn't choose to use me and that in essence they were willing to waste my time, because I recognize that their values are different than mine. So that's one situation. Another situation is I've had things recently that have really hurt me. I've had some people that the way that they've handled situations has been really hard for me. And so I flipped that situation and I started looking at it, and I say, well, how would I have handled it if everything were reversed? And when I played through and I said, well, I would have done this, and I would have done this, and I would have done this. Now, granted, it's easy for me to say these things because I'm not in an emotional state, and I'm looking at it from best case scenario. This is my ideal scenario of how I would have handled this. But I'm able to say, these are the things that I would have done. And then I compare what I would have done in their situation versus what they did in their situation. And what's really fascinating about this perspective flip, changing their third party into a first person point of view, where I'm looking at it from my perspective and how I would handle things, is that all of a sudden I can see where their values don't line up with mine. I can see where they may have a limiting belief or a negative belief or a bad coping mechanism that they're implementing. And not only does it give me more empathy for them, but it also helps me understand who they are better as a person. And in some ways, I've had to reevaluate people where I've recognized that maybe this person isn't who I thought they were. Because I wouldn't do that to somebody else in that situation. And the thing that I love about it is it becomes less hurtful. Because instead of it meaning that it's something about me, then I can see where it's something about them. I can see that, look, we're not wired the same. This is not how I would have handled this. This is not how I would have treated somebody. And you're going out and you're doing that. And so I feel empathy for the things that are causing you to act that way, the pains that you have, the beliefs that you have, but then also say, maybe you're not who I thought you were. Because you obviously don't value the same things that I value. So that's in essence what I've been doing. I love it. So how can I care for my human in any given moment in time? It has already made a significant difference in my life. Just looking at each situation and what can I do for my human in this situation? Looking at the end of my day and saying, if I would have lived my day at the level and the way that I wanted to live it, how would I have done it? Helps me celebrate my wins and helps me recognize where I want to make changes. Seeking my own approval and seeing, do I approve of the way that I'm living my life? Because sometimes we don't do things that we want to do, but I approve of the intention behind it. So I might do something and I'd be like, you know what, I approve of where my heart was and the intention behind me, but I can see where I want to make tweaks to the actual action I took. So there's some growth there. And then flipping perspectives. Saying, if I'm in a first person perspective, how would I look at this if I were a third party person? If I were treating somebody else the way that I treat myself? If I were somebody else in my looking at my situation, how would I look at my actions? So I think that can be really powerful. If I'm looking at it and say, well, this is what I did, how would somebody else see what I did? Because I know what my intentions are. I know where my heart's at. But outside people don't. They see our actions and our words and they have less information to go on. So sometimes if you can look and say, how would I view my actions if I were somebody else? You can kind of see where maybe you think that what you're doing is right because you understand your intentions. But if you were to actually look at it, you can see where you could make some changes based on an outside perspective. And then also looking at how other people's actions might have changed if you would have done it. So you can see where their values match. You can see where their beliefs are. You can see where all these coping mechanisms and traumas and everything are at play. And between those things, I feel like those can help you a lot in keeping your life on track, helping keep you in check, helping to see how others should be in your life, where you should set boundaries, where you need to change your perspective. I just have found that doing these things is giving me a lot of peace in my life. It's giving me a lot of joy. It's giving me a lot of peace. It's giving me a lot of growth. And hopefully you can see where you can implement some of these and make a difference in your life. Well, thanks for being with me this week. I want you to know that I believe in you. I know that you can do it. And until next week, remember that you are not alone.